Dollars and Cents is made on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples. We pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australia Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leake, the senior content producer here at the Australia Institute, and he's back. We've got our chief economist back in the hot seat, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Oh my God, it's back.
My God. You're back from holiday and back from being...
Crowds going wild.
Air horns.
Back from a holiday where I also decided to get sick halfway through.
Why would you do that?
Because
That was a silly mistake.
I enjoyed the beach walks far too much, clearly, and someone decided, no, you can't have fun. You've got to be sick.
Yeah, you've got to spend your annual leave being sick.
Yeah, and so decided to stay home last week and give Matt one more go in the big chair. Yeah,
well, he was very excited to have another go at the podcast, but good to have you back.
I'm back. Let's do it.
All right.
Great to be here.
Well, Greg, we're actually recording the podcast a day early this week because tomorrow I'm going to be heading to Adelaide to the Labor Party National Conference.
Ooh,
very exciting.
Yeah, going back kind of my hometown, or at least my home state. And where you haven't been since you were a wee little girl.
Yeah, it's probably the Australian capital city that I've spent the least time in.
You'll have so much fun.
I'll have so much fun, yeah.
Well, maybe not, because why are you there?
Yeah, well, a few of our colleagues are doing some panels at the Fringe events. We've got a stall there, I think. Yep, lots to do.
Which is really will be very confusing for many South Australian listeners, given the Adelaide Fringe is a different thing. So no, you would not be doing some live theatre or comedy stand-up.
No, fun fact, my younger sibling did at Fringe last year. So I'm sure they might do that again this year. Anyway, side note. I am not the live theatre one in my family.
We should be getting a better deal out of gas. We export so much of it, and yet we get so little back in terms of revenue.
In the middle of a global fuel crisis is the worst possible time to jeopardise these relationships or the investment that underpins them.
I think Australians are learning that we've been giving it away far too cheaply. And that energy companies, gas companies have been taking the piss.
Yeah, I think probably the time has arrived to consider reviewing the taxation on gas.
The Labor Party National Conference. There's a few reports out recently about some different policy changes being added to the Labor platform at the conference, including changes to the federal Labor's stance on issues like gas tax, Israel-Palestine, gambling advertising, AI. But Greg, what actually is the Labor Party National Conference? Who goes there? What happens? What's the point?
Yeah, there's a lot of delegates there, Shad. You'll hear a lot of speeches going, delegates, we come here today, united as one.
Who are these delegates?
Yeah, the delegates are actually, they're a mixture. You're going to see, obviously, the Prime Minister and Treasurer and members of Parliament.
Yep.
There'll also be many union representatives there and delegates from, branches, Labor branches and state branches who have been elected to attend the Labor conference. And it's their triennial chance, so every 3 years they do it, where they get together and essentially hash out what's the Labor Party all about. Historically, these used to be very, I'll say important, but also very contentious things where there were real fights.
Okay.
Certainly in the 80s, in the Hawke Keating eras, there were big fights over things like Labor's policies on banking and things like that, because Keating, of course, wanted to open up our financial system. There's, for example, the Labor Party constitution, which they're not going to be debating about, still refers to the Labor Party as a democratic socialist party. Now, there have been fights over whether or not to keep that socialist aspect in there. And actually back in, I think it was 81, There was a big fight to get rid of it. They didn't get rid of it, but what they did was added about 22 clauses after that statement, which kind of made the whole thing a bit like, oh, yes, we're a democratic socialist party, but all of our real objectives have nothing to do with socialism.
Yeah. Okay.
And what they're talking about here is the party platform is pretty much just about every topic you can think of, every policy issue.
Yeah.
So whether it's Indigenous, whether it's defence, whether it's the economy, foreign affairs, all of these things, they state some objectives, some aims, things that they believe in. And the fight are over, let's take things out.
Yeah.
Like, for example, previously there was a provision that the Labor Party was against mandatory sentencing.
Okay.
And the problem being that the Labor Party had voted in favour of mandatory sentencing on a number of issues over the past 5-6 years, purely to sort of prevent it being labelled as being weak on crime. And so now that provision is apparently going to be dumped.
Okay. At this conference?
Okay. What they're doing that is, I guess, relevant to our discussion is they're going to do something on the economy where they want to insert a provision that is essentially talking about gas taxes and resources tax.
Yeah.
And what they are trying to include is the lines, Labor will ensure that the Australian people receive a fair return from their natural resources, including through appropriate taxation arrangements, while securing Australia's role as a reliable international energy supply and investment partner.
Okay, sure. When you say they, who's they that's fighting for it?
Oh, basically it's come from obviously sections of the Labor Party like Lean, which is their environmental arm, sort of the more left-wing sides of things, although these things are all a bit dodgy given Anthony Albanese is notionally of the left. Which would be a shock to many people. But basically there is an undercurrent of the Labor faithful, the Labor Party, and also the ACTU and through the unions, because remember the ACTU have been pushing for the 25% tax on gas exports. That was their policy that we helped with some of the research and has certainly been supporting. So that's where the pressure is coming from.
Okay.
And it appears it's going to pass on Thursday. While you're there, they'll vote on it. It seems like it'll go through. Probably the reason it'll go through is, as you could understand from my having read that out, it feels like there's a lot of caveats there.
Yeah, it's just a fairer return.
Fair return, and so long as we don't affect our supply, and it's all a bit of a blah blah blah. But the import of it, and back in the day, the ALP Labor platform was kind of sacrosanct because probably up until, I'd say, Gough Whitlam and definitely Hawke, the Labor Party kind of told the Labor caucus, the politicians, kind of what to do. And this was certainly a thing that Whitlam had to fight against, that there were these faceless men who were telling him what to do. And there was a famous photo of Arthur Calwell, who was then Labor leader, and Gough Whitlam basically standing outside the Labor conference that was being held here in Canberra, standing under a street light because they had to leave the room while the party people voted on things.
Interesting.
So it was talked about sort of these faceless men. Now it's not so much. It's not a case of if the Labor Party did something against the platform that people would have to resign from the Labor Party. It's not, as we see with the whole mandatory sentencing bit.
Yeah.
But it does still have some weight. It still has that drive, and it also is, because everyone knows this is about the 25% tax on gas, that the ACT is pushing it. The Labor Party have got it now. Probably will have it in their platform. So it kind of at least lets everyone know that, hey, the fight's not over yet. Just because they didn't change it in the budget, don't think that the the push is not coming. We've certainly seen from Labor MPs like Ed Husick, who last week was in a forum in Sydney with Richard Dennis talking on taxing gas, and he's very much been pushing it. So it's an indicator that it's not just coming from the Greens or David Pocock or others. There's definitely within the ALP pushing for it now. When it gets down to, though, Anthony Albanese can say, give a damn.
Yeah. You said that historically these conferences have been more, belligerent. What did you say? There've been more fights.
Yeah,
so
contentious.
Do I not have any fights to look forward to at this conference?
There could be. I mean, there have been fights in the past over same-sex marriage because there were some very conservative labour unions, especially the shoppies, who were against it. There's certainly been fights over asylum seekers. Very much when Bill Shorten was leader, he wanted to get in a thing about being able to turn boats back, and Anthony Albanese at the time very much was doing the fight to prevent that happening. This year, probably the big fight might be over Israel.
Yeah.
And our response and the Labor Party's responses. So, look, they always try and manage it a bit to make it look like a nice unified party, but reality does sometimes slip through. But mostly there's not as much, purely because the big fights over things have kind of been done in the 80s and the 90s, that real sort of shift from the old we're a 1940s, 50s kind of we're really socialist kind of party to now it not being so much. But yeah, so probably won't be a lot of fights, and I don't think there'll be a fight over this gas tax. I think we'll go through on the nod and
no
everyone will go.
Fisticuffs.
No.
Ah, well, I'll just have to start some myself now. Also in the news this week, Trump is still doing Trump things, I guess. It's been a while since we've talked about him. He's imposed a 50% tariff on a bunch of Canadian goods. Don't really know why. Do you know why?
Well, the Canadian Prime Minister wasn't booed as much at the World Cup final,
is
so that might be. I mean, there is talk that it was due to the wildfires that are happening in both Canada and the US, but certainly in Canada. And some of the
so he's mad that Canada's on fire?
Well, the smoke has come across the border. I don't know how.
Oh, that's very inconsiderate of Canada to be on fire.
And so he thinks because the air quality in America has become worse because of Canadian fires, they should pay a penalty, which Canadians who have fairly generously come to great help of America during many of the Californian wildfires might be going, huh? But
there was something about there might be retaliatory toward Canadian tariffs, which I suppose in turn were then
it is
in retaliation.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
He's using a piece of legislation that's known as the Smoot-Hawley Act, which if you've watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you will have heard of. And it was something that happened in the Great Depression, that they passed this act. Smoot-Hawley, they were the two legislators who sort of drove it, that enabled the US to levy tariffs for basically whatever reason they wanted. And part of it, that legislation that has never been used, even back in the Great Depression, was to do retaliatory tariffs. Yeah. And you're right. He's saying that, I'm doing these because Canada is boycotting American alcohol, and so I'm going to retaliate to that. Yeah. But the point is they were boycotting that because that was in response to America's tariffs.
So it's just retaliation all the way down, I guess.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't seem completely legal, shall we say. It certainly goes against the US, Canadian and Mexican, not their free trade agreement, but the agreement that they did after the free trade agreement was superseded by something Trump came up with in his first term. So it's probably not even able to be done under American law, let alone as part of their agreement. So who knows where it goes, but it does sort of just show that that Trump's still the unhinged lunatic that we always knew he was.
To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them and with this scum. Honestly, they haven't seen anything yet. We've been nice. We've been nice.
On top of that, the war in Iran, I don't know what last time we mentioned it where we were at, but I personally, I haven't been following it super closely because it somehow seems pointless too, because whenever it's announced that the war's over, then it's just immediately not over. There are always, it's followed by more strikes. There was a blockade back on. Trump proposed a 20% fee on commercial ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and then he almost immediately backed down. There were more strikes on both sides. I mean, what?
Yeah,
what is going
it's
on?
nothing good.
No.
So yeah, the memorandum of understanding was signed about a month ago. That kind of at least ended hostilities, sort of in a major sense. Didn't begin the opening of the Strait of Hormuz because there was still a lot of dealing with mines and things like that. Trump was though declaring victory.
Yeah.
But a lot of the conditions of the memorandum of understanding were never going to be held. They weren't held. There were, shall we say, shots fired on both sides. And then about a week or so ago, it really started ramping up. We're back firing against everybody.
Yeah.
Iran are blowing up ships. America's blowing up whatever.
Yeah. That was a pretty funny tweet from Hunter Biden that was like, something along the lines of Trump should actually get the Nobel Prize for Peace if he keeps ending wars. He's ended this war so many times.
He has ended it very many times.
Yeah.
And it was easy to do, actually, if you asked him. It was actually quite easier than I thought it would be.
Yeah, he'll do it again.
And
again.
Yeah. So, yeah, the threat to put a 20% tariff on or a toll
fee.
on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, that lasted barely less time than it took to go from Trump's mouth to people's ears, because everyone was like, how?
Yeah.
How are you going to actually do that? You're going to set up a toll booth, are you? You realize the strait doesn't go through America, so the only way you'd be able to do it is by having a naval blockade, and those ships would be fairly open to be blown out of the water. So, yeah, that ended. It's oil prices going back up.
Great.
Certainly haven't got yet to the $100 a barrel, but they're going back up and certainly risen since where they fell after the MOU was signed. Good news here in Australia. That meant that Santos and Woodside's share price has gone back up again. So I know we were all a little bit worried there.
Yeah.
But no, they're doing well.
Yeah.
Look, it's not good because, as we all know, when oil prices start going up, that starts affecting everyone and everything.
Yeah, I mean, bringing it back to Australian economics perspective, there are suggestions that Australia could be in for another interest rate rise this year if the war doesn't end, which would be the fourth so far this year. So, yeah, if the war doesn't end, we get another rate rise. That seems like we're getting another rate rise then.
Look, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, there have been a few. It's really weird. As soon as the sort of the hostility started, there have been a lot of people, oh, now we got a rate rise coming. Look, at the moment, for the next meeting, which is in August, the futures market is rating at about a 19-20% chance of a rate rise.
Okay.
And that really hasn't changed a lot. It's kind of been that for a while now. There's, it's still not even sort of getting up to a 50% chance of there being another rate rise by the end of the year. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be, because we know in the past the Reserve Bank has looked for any excuse and has suggested that if inflation is going up, that means we got to do something to temper those expectations. But it shouldn't mean it. But we've got a couple of things coming out on Thursday this week. So probably by the time people are starting to
when
hearing
you say
this,
we've got a couple of things coming out.
Couple of things coming out. So Thursday this week, we got the latest unemployment figures that are coming out. So that'll be for June. And then next week, spoiler alert, this is probably what the podcast will be about, the June quarter inflation figures are coming out. And so that those two things, especially next week's inflation figures, will be the big ones on whether there will be a rate rise. It's probably too early to say that the impact of the Iran war heating up again is going to affect inflation, because we haven't seen huge jumps in oil, and the jump in petrol prices isn't so great like it was back in February and March.
Yeah.
So,
well, guys, find out next week how worried we should be. And Greg, to finish up this week, a new report out says that Australia's privatised employment services system has failed. It is broken, and it should be brought back into the public sector. It's a new report from the Centre for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research. We've talked semi-recently, I think, about Australia's employment services, about when the federal government announced what they were calling the biggest reform to employment services in decades, which in the end turned out to be somewhat light on details, but didn't seem, that seismic. There weren't any legislative changes needed. So, Greg, I guess just to start us off, can you just, define what employment services are? What's included under that umbrella?
Yeah, it's for anyone who happens to be unemployed or has been unemployed in the past, 20 years, you'll know there's no longer a CES anymore. There's no Commonwealth Employment Service. You have to go to a job provider. These are often for-profit services, and they will be the one you deal with in terms of trying to find work. Notionally, they help you find work. They will also set you up with, in a sense, work for the dole sort of type of situations that you have to do. And so you're not actually dealing with government bureaucrats. You're dealing with these employment service providers. Who, because John Howard thought the private sector does things so much better than the public sector, and by privatising the employment service networks, things will be so much more efficient.
So much more efficient. So how much more efficient are they, Greg?
Yeah, they're not.
No.
And as we've pointed out in the past, there have been a number of reviews into the system. One of the more recent ones was done with the Employment White Paper back in 2023 that found that these organisations are shit.
Indeed.
They're really good at finding work for people who don't need any help finding work because they've got lots of qualifications, experience, and they live in the city and have easy access to transport.
Yeah, I mean, it would. I feel like it would be pretty easy to help find those people.
They're really good at getting those people jobs.
What about the people who don't have those?
Yeah, as soon as you lack qualifications, you live in rural areas, you have any special needs, they're useless. But they get lots of money from them, from the government, because when we say that, they do this service, they're not doing this service out of the goodness of their heart. The government is essentially paying them to do this service. And how they do that is they contract out the service and say, okay, we need someone to deliver this service in this area. It needs to cover, this many people or whatever who can do it, and people bid for it and say we can do it for X amount of money.
How much does the government spend on private contractors?
And for those of you who don't want to read the entire report, you can go find a really good article on it by Gareth Hutchins in the ABC website. He notes that the report says that AusTender data, and AusTender is where companies go to try and get contracts from the government, shows that employment services contracts currently total $5.5 billion.
Okay.
So that's the current contracts that are operable right now all total up to $5.5 billion. So we don't know if that's per year or that's for the length of the contracts that are currently live right now. That's across 45 providers, many of whom are for profit.
Yeah. And $5 billion in, the scope of how much a government spends, is that a lot compared to how much they'd be spending if it were public?
Well, this is the thing. It's are we getting value for money?
Yeah.
That's the real thing. Like, even if it costs $5.5 billion to do it by public sector,
That's money worth.
or 6 billion or 7 billion. Are we getting value for money? And as this report points out, and as I say, the white paper pointed out, we don't get value for money. They are great. They're basically ticket clipping in a sense. They take the money, say, oh, we did this service, we got them to do this thing, we got them to fill out these applications, we sent them off to this employer. And the real problem is we found that the incentives behind the system were such that because they get money per unemployed person that they get a job for, it was any job for anyone.
Yeah.
Not a job that best fits a person.
Yeah.
And that's why they were really great for people who were super qualified and everything, because they had so many more options. They could get a job and it'd probably be a good fit. And what they were also finding is most people were like, I didn't even need these people. I had to use them because I had to do that to get job seeker. But they were no help whatsoever. I found my job myself in a sense.
Yeah.
But for the people who really needed help, nah.
No.
So it was like, oh, here's a job. And it's like, I'm not suited for that job. It's not something I like doing. They'd get it, last not very long, and they'd be back in the system again. And it was just churning. And, it's $5.5 billion. That's a lot of money. Yeah, if we were to do free uni and TAFE, we're talking a bit over 10 billion maybe. So, it's a lot of money for a service that should be about public benefit, not profits. And as we've said repeatedly, as soon as you make public service about private, or as soon as you privatise public services, profit becomes the motive, not the service.
Yeah.
And that's what this report really shows. And I think it just provides more impetus to the government to, if they are going to do those big once-in-a-generation changes, get real about it.
Yeah.
And stop thinking that what John Howard viewed as good is still good, because it wasn't and it isn't. And all it has done is made some people extremely wealthy, and it hasn't delivered better outcomes for unemployed, especially for long-term unemployed.
All right. Well, I reckon that's probably all we've got time for today, Greg.
My voice held out. I got through it.
Congratulations.
With only lots of coughs that our producer Angus has nicely edited out.
Yeah. Hope so.
Hope so. Everyone, thank you very much for listening. It is great to be back. We will be back again, and I will promise I will be back. 2 weeks in a row.
Jinx it.
Yeah, actually, no, now I'm stuffed.
Yeah.
Because I'm headed off to Adelaide next week, so I'll probably be stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No.
But we will hopefully be back next week with another Dollars and Cents, and we'll be talking CPI, we'll be talking inflation.
Yep.
This episode of Dollars and Cents, however, as Elinor pointed out, is a day early. It was done on Wednesday, the 22nd of July. And some things may have changed. If you'd like to find out all about the Labor Conference and the gas tax, you can check out my column on the Guardian Australian site, or also head on over to thepoint.com.au, where we will have stonks of stuff on it, articles on it. We might even get some links to Elinor's video coverage of all the things going on there. Do we do that on the Point? I think we should. I'm just going to say we do. And it will manifest itself.
I'm sure there'll be some write-ups about whatever happens.
There certainly will be, as well as lots of other great content, including my review of The Odyssey.
Which we were going to talk about.
We probably should.
We decided to talk about actual things.
Anyway, too long, didn't read. Go see it. It's very good. As always, our music is from Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, great to be back. Have a great week, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Thank you.